Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners.
But when you hear the narrator say Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, that one line, I was like, hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
So this Sunday, for the first time this year, I had a chance to just sit down and do my favorite thing that I do on Sundays in the fall, watch the NFL. Yeah, I was on vacation for a couple of weeks at the beginning of the season. I was busy last Sunday and wasn't able to watch any NFL. This is my first day with my NFL Red Zone, with my multiple screens going, bouncing back and forth between games, watching my 4 fantasy football teams tick away. It was great. I loved it. But one thing was interesting because I usually don't watch broadcast television. And so while I was watching, I saw a bunch of ads. I saw a bunch of political ads. I saw a bunch of political ads for Kamala Harris. Boy, they've got a lot of money and they're flooding the zone right now with ads for Kamala Harris. But I kept seeing this one ad for Donald Trump, or more specifically, for a Donald Trump aligned super PAC. They kept playing the same ad over and over and over again during breaks on NFL Sunday, and it was very specifically placed on CBS and Fox during all of the NFL games and last night during the Monday Night Football game. It's this ad right here.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Oh, forgive me. I could have sworn this was for a super PAC. No, it's right from the Trump campaign, and it is brutal. We're going to let it play here on a loop because a lot of people watched this ad like this. If they were at a sports bar, they couldn't hear what was going on, but they saw it. If they were at a sports book, let's say in Vegas on all those big screens, or if they were at home and, the missus doesn't like hearing the football game, it's okay if you want to watch, but we don't need to hear it and blast out the house. So look at the imagery here. First of all, the title, Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners. There she is, talking with a transgender dude there and laying it out there that that's exactly what she's going to do in her own words. There she is. I think that's Photoshop, but that bald dude with the lipstick, as well as that Rachel Levine person, is part of the Biden administration. I do like the orange is the new black reference in here as well. Transgender operations on illegal aliens, true, again, in the prison system. And the fact of the matter is, the fact that they are putting biological men in women's prisons is an absolute human rights violation and a scandal. But of course, she supports that. And in addition to that, she supports paying for their pharmaceuticals, for their surgeries, for their therapies, for their procedures. And they're not only, it's not only her wanting to push this agenda, oh, and this imagery too. It's amazing. It's so phenomenally effective. So not only do they want to support all of those agendas, but they want to use your tax dollars to pay for all of that stuff. And they want to pay for it for prisoners, people who have broken the law. You play by the rules. You follow the law. You're not in prison, but they're going to take dollars out of your pocket to pay for these procedures on people who have broken the law. And to boot, illegal immigrants who shouldn't even be in this country, who have come here, broken the law, even beyond our immigration laws that they've already broken. Now they want their transgender procedures, and they want you to pay for it. It's an incredibly powerful message. And I got to tell you, I had a house full of people watching football with me. And a lot of them come from different political stripes, right? And they know who I am and they know what I do. And we all have, various political conversations. And I want to tell you, one of the people who was in the house said, because this ad kept playing, and said, and one of these people said, "Why, Larry, don't you think that ad's a little over the top? It's pretty in your face." And I said, "Yeah, it's very in your face." "What do you mean by over the top?" Because everything about this ad is 100% accurate. It is 100% true. And this person actually didn't debate that with me. I know it's just, I'm watching football and this is the message that's being beat over the head. Every break I see this ad, it's just kind of relentless. And I'm like, trust me, that message that you're seeing running on NFL football games, I swear to God, this was the conversation I had this Sunday, 2 days ago. I said that ad resonates with a huge number of people watching the NFL right now, voters that Donald Trump is trying to reach. This is an incredibly effective ad. Fast forward to yesterday morning, The Breakfast Club. This is the radio and streaming show hosted by Charlamagne the God. It appeals almost specifically, exclusively to an African-American audience. They're having their Monday morning roundtable discussion about what they did over the weekend and what was going on. And he leans to the left. He is a Democrat. He was skeptical of Kamala Harris at first, but I believe he supports Kamala Harris right now. And by the way, this is the guy, if you remember right, Joe Biden, during the interview, when Joe Biden says, listen, if you're voting for Donald Trump, you ain't black. That was Charlamagne the God. That happened on his show, okay? Here's the conversation on Breakfast Club yesterday morning about watching NFL football on Sunday.
That ad they was running during the football game claiming the vice president supports funding gender transition surgeries for all prison inmates. That was nuts.
I wouldn't say nuts, but that was crazy.
That was a professional morning show joke right there. Trust me, I do morning shows. That's what I do. I'm a morning radio host. And right there, that guy who said, I don't know if I would say it was nuts, because it's a joke about transgender surgeries. That is professional morning radio right there, my friends, and I applaud it. All right. I didn't mean to interrupt that, but let's go right back to it.
I don't know if it was the backdrop of football, but when you hear the narrator say Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, that one line, I was like, hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
They made it seem like Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Literally said that Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes. She supports funding gender transition surgeries for all prison inmates and migrants. That ad was impactful. I think it was because it was during football. I don't think I would have paid that commercial no attention if it was any other time. When you're watching football, what the hell? In between big commercials, they give you this?
Right? Absolutely brilliant. By the way, and this is what's really interesting to me, because the most impactful thing about this ad is that you see Kamala Harris saying it herself in her own words. I love that this ad said that Kamala Harris supports transgender procedures, which it does. Let's, again, the beginning.
For prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe.
Having her say it in that little forum with the dude in the dress and the wig pretending to be a girl, it's beyond impactful. It's devastating. And I assure you, they're not the only ones, the team on the Breakfast Club, that were talking about it during the game and the next day. And by the way, it transcends just the Black community. We've talked quite a bit earlier in this program, as well as yesterday, about the Latino vote and how Latinos are moving away from Democrats in droves this year and moving toward Donald Trump. Why? Well,
What are the issues that move you towards Trump and move you and your community towards Donald Trump?
Well, mainly as the transgender and also the abortion right.
And you would say most of your community is choosing Donald Trump because of that?
Yes. The majority, yes.
I know that, Paul Ryan and these other, Larry Hogan and other Republicans are like, you know what, I'm not really a culture guy. I don't get involved in those issues. It's really about tax rates and spending and the actuarial tables on Social Security and Medicare and the threat of China undermining our trade policies. And yes, we really do sound like this because this is the kind of Republicans that we are. And listen, I'm not saying that our elections aren't about that. That stuff's super important. It 100% is. But while the Republican Party has been led by people like Paul Ryan or Mitt Romney or Larry Hogan or other Republicans who I'm not a culture war guy. That's what Paul Ryan said last year when the fights at the school boards over curriculum and transgender policies were really catching fire. And Paul Ryan says, I'm not a culture war guy. Well, our party's been led by people who are not culture war guys for decades. And while those guys focus on tax rates and spending and the actual tables about Social Security and Medicare, even though they never do anything about it, as they've been focusing on that, they haven't been focusing on the culture war stuff. And before you know it, our school boards are overrun by people who are trying to convince your children that they're not the sex that God made them when they were born. And even more so, they're now trying to get between you and raising your own children. Where if these children in our public schools share a sexual secret with a teacher, these teachers are being instructed to keep that secret from you, to lie to you, the parent, about your own child's sexuality. If those teachers drove up in a white van at a park, at a playground, and started sharing sexual secrets with children, they'd be arrested. But because it happens in a third grade classroom, they're not just protected, they're rewarded as Teacher of the Year. And if you object to it, you're a bigot, and the Justice Department starts investigating you as a domestic terrorist. That's what's happened in our school systems, while Paul Ryan and Republicans are saying, I'm not really a culture war guy. I don't really want to get my hands dirty with that kind of thing, because then, George Stephanopoulos will say icky things about me. So here we are. But you know who doesn't mind getting his hand dirty with issues like that? This guy doesn't mind getting his hands dirty with issues like that. In fact, he raised it at the debate. Do you remember this moment? Watch Kamala Harris, by the way, shaking her head and suggesting that this is a lie.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Remember everybody saying, what's he talking about? That's not true. What is that? It's like one of the rare things that David Muir didn't come in and try to fact check, did he? This is one of the things they didn't fact check, I think, because it was a passing remark. But look at her face. What are you talking about? Just in the body language, anybody who's watching this who doesn't know the facts would say, Trump's out of his mind.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Right. Oh, that's outrageous. That's not true. In fact, here we go. The next day, The Atlantic, Trump falsely suggested that Kamala Harris wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. Here we are at the New Yorker. Donald Trump said strange things, even by his own standards. He lamented that immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating dog. Yeah, and then, and Kamala Harris wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison, right? So we have the fact checks the next day from the New Yorker and at the Atlantic, because let's be clear, the reason that they jumped on board and didn't research this issue and decided that this had to be false and had to be fact checked is because, understand, at the Atlantic and at the New Yorker, this right here.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
That is even too much for the writers at the Atlantic and the New Yorker. They are so freaked out about the idea that Kamala Harris would want to do taxpayer-funded transgender operations on illegal aliens in prison that not one part of them could even fathom that that was accurate. As crazy as they are at the Atlantic and the New Yorker on this issue, even this was beyond the pale. They didn't even take time to research. Well, that's got to be a lie. There is no way that Kamala Harris wants to take taxpayer dollars and fund transgender operations on illegal immigrants in prison. So let's just fact check it, because even to those left-wing liberals, that's a bridge too far. Except that it's not, because it's true. CNN.
Tonight, Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-file investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-file found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when
Now, I'm going to pause this for a minute because they're going to move on now to the transgender operations for illegal aliens in prison. But I got to pause this because you got to see the lower right-hand corner here. Let's blow that up real fast, Kev. Do you see the graphic that they just put up? The graphic is promoting tomorrow night's presidential debate. You see what I'm getting at here? See, this clip.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Was from the debate. This clip is from the night before the debate. So if anyone in the journalism world or in American politics or those writers at The Atlantic or New Yorker are actually paying attention to American politics, they would have already known that this was true. I mean, maybe they did and they just lied for Kamala Harris. But this was actually exposed the day before the debate. Now, listen to what was exposed about Kamala Harris.
You're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU. And this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren. And you really see that in a lot of these answers. And I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
Taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She
migrants.
actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this.
Oh.
And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, you know, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally. You know, what else? You know,
I love that they're sort of speechless. She's like, "What do I do with this? I know my job here is to try to sugarcoat it." And you know, good on CNN. Andrew Kaczynski, you know, he has good days, he has bad days, this guy. I've known him for a long time, and he does dig up stuff on, well, I guess both sides. Back when I knew him, he was only digging up stuff on one side, but then he got hired by BuzzFeed and then by CNN, and well, anyway, I'm glad he dug this up on Kamala. So, and now that you know that, now that you know the policies, it really does make that ad that much more effective, doesn't it? And more importantly, it makes this reaction.
Claiming the vice president supports funding gender transition surgeries for all prison inmates and migrants in the U.S., that was nuts. But when you hear the narrator say Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, that one line, I was like, hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
And illegal immigrants, by the way. I mean, you may say that you're not a culture war guy, too. You may say, yeah, we should really talk about spending and taxes. And sure, we'll go ahead and talk about the border, I guess, this time because it got that bad. And maybe we should talk about crime in the streets. But this stuff, really, is that what this election's going to turn on? Yes. Yes. That's what this election is going to turn on. We've got no room right now for people who don't want to be culture war guys, because guess what? We don't have the choice. It's our culture. It's our country. It's our kids. It's our families. And if we don't focus on it, if we don't do something to protect them, then this is exactly where we end up. And oh, by the way, last I checked, Kamala Harris's side of the political equation, they don't seem to hesitate to get involved in culture issues. How do you think we got here? They injected their warped view of sexuality and the culture into our school systems, into the medical profession, into every corporation through DEI programs. They've proactively gone in there and forced this issue on us. It's up to us to defend. And last I checked, they're just fine celebrating abortion and talking about abortion as much as possible, every opportunity they get. They don't shy away from being a culture war guy. It's time for, guess what, guys? The culture war is here. We didn't ask for it. But if we don't fight it, well, we're going to lose. A lot more than just an election.